divinity. However, some Vaishnava acharyas made concessions to win the attention and confidence of persons unready to immediately accept Vaishnava conclusions. For instance, in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his life and precepts, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur stated that he would be satisfied if readers not prepared to recognize Nimai Pandit as a supreme lord would at least accept him as a noble and holy teacher. However, the pronounced majority of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's writings were of the traditional, unmitigatedly Vaishnav genre, and even when making concessions, he never attempted to cloak his own purely Vaishnava position. After Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the two great acharyas, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, both wrote in a direct, aggressive style. Notwithstanding Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's having specifically warned of the dangers of misunderstanding Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's apparent accommodating of non-Vaishnava elements, some recent Vaishnava writers claiming to follow the lead of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur almost habitually make qualified statements. As a theoretical example, such writers would prefer the cautious Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who Gaudiya Vaishnavas consider to be a full incarnation of Krishna, whom they accept as the supreme deity, to the assertive Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is non-different from Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead. The first phraseology makes no claim for the divinity of Lord Chaitanya or Krishna. The author presents himself as a mere relayer of information, as uncommitted as his target audience. Whereas the second affirms the faith of the author and of all Gaudiya Vaishnavas and squarely challenges agnosticism. An area of Vaishnava writing that requires special expertise is that meant to gain the attention and respect of academicians. Undoubtedly, devotees who attempt to be heard within orthodox academia, sworn as it is to reason and logic as defined by the academia itself, face tremendous challenges in composing writings that are true to Vaishnav Siddhanta, yet also are perceived by contemporary intellectuals as sound, readable, thorough, well argued, balanced, and dispassionate. Because the outlook and spirit of Vaishnav Siddhanta are in so many respects contradictory to those of the academic establishment. Mundane academicians consider as serious scholarship only writings of the above mentioned indefinite style. The academia requires clinical analysis which cannot possibly inspire anyone toward devotion. A terrible danger in presenting Vaishnavism in terms agreeable to the scholarly class is that of introducing and normalizing relativism within Gaudiya society. Better to follow the example of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and his followers, who engaged with academic types not by catering to their multiple misconceptions, but by unelevated attack on their endemic errors, yet in a style so brilliantly scholarly that the mundane scholars, even begrudgingly, were obliged to take note. This approach reinforces rather than risks diminishing the precious faith of Vaishnava readers, and at every step challenges the supercilious agnosticism of academia, which must be demolished as a precondition for solidly establishing true theism in the world. Srila Prabhupada also ordered his disciples to write very strongly, vehemently, even if it is a little offensive. Still, these rascals should be taught a good lesson. Footnote: This was spoken in the context of countering spurious scientific propaganda. In contrast, the pandering style expresses quiescence with the pseudo-neutrality of academia. For instance, even though to present Ramayana as a folk story and Bhagwan Sri Ram as a legendary hero might reach a wider audience, such a presentation does not inspire bhakti and is in fact offensive. The plethora of such academically neutral writing in post-1977 Vaishnava society has almost certainly been a major, if not subtle, factor in the ethos of diminished faith that has enveloped and enervated it, imperceptibly polluting it at every level. Early in 1977, some leading disciples complained to Srila Prabhupada that the team producing Back to God had deliberately changed its tenor. For several months, Back to Godhead had pitched at making Krishna consciousness accessible to all types of people, even housewives, and at giving non-devotees a favorable opinion of our movement. But in doing so, they had presented Krishna consciousness in an almost common manner. For instance, non-devotional books rather than Shastra were cited, and recipes were given without instruction to offer the prepared food to Krishna. Photos of people in regular American dress were featured, along with their mundane testimonies on the benefits of chanting Hare Krishna. Chanting makes me calmer. Chanting makes me more perceptive. Chanting makes me more open-minded. Throughout the whole magazine, there were no pictures of Lord Chaitanya or Krishna. Srila Prabhupada's response was to change the editor. The first issue under the new editor, Satyaswarup Das Goswami, included articles like Beyond Animal Technology, Krishna the Personal Form of God, accompanied by a full-page photo of Radha Krishna deities, Man on the Moon, a case of mass brainwashing, and calling the blind scientists bluff. Later that year came the article The Demons Among Us, with the classic observation. A demon need not be a huge monster with 10 heads and 1,000 arms, nor a little red fiend with a pitchfork. Of course, there may very well be demons with grotesque features and supernatural powers, but the demons who live among us generally appear quite ordinary. Your mailman might be a demon, so might your grocer, your congressman, or anyone else you know. For that matter, so might you. The article then proceeded to analyze the nature of demons according to modern contexts, subheadings, the divine and the demoniac, the killers of the soul, the blind leaders, the godless scientists, and descriptions from Shastra, especially chapter 16 of the Bhagavad Gita. This represents the standard of preaching to the public that Srila Prabhupada approved, not the spineless, fuzzy style which he rejected for Back to Godhead. His flagship literary medium for presenting broader society with Krishna conscious perspectives on topical issues. As Tamal Krishna Goswami stated to Srila Prabhupada, that magazine is our platform for speaking strongly. In your Back to Godhead that you were publishing, you were very, very strong. Today, many more devotees are writing than during Srila Prabhupada's presence, and more writing appears on the internet. The internet is ironic, affording practically unlimited dissemination of information and ideas. It seems to ratchet down mass stupidity to ever lower depths. It provides wide opportunities for preaching Krishna consciousness, yet it also exposes devotees to multiple influences that they would be better off without. Much of internet writings focus on internal matters, including news, views, and also controversial issues such as the roles of gurus, women, and homosexual within Vaishnav society. Unfortunately, polemic exchanges are rare well moderated and thus tend to be dominated by innuendo and intimidation. Furthermore, such dialogues seldom come to a satisfactory conclusion, but tend to peter out in unresolved discord. A better overall approach for addressing such topics might be for differing parties to post papers that comprehensively present their respective positions, thereby leaving it to others to draw their own conclusions. Position papers should forestall having no repeatedly restate the same arguments and may be cited or referred to when issues that have already been deliberated ad nauseum are raised yet again. The internet is also host to profuse propaganda of the kind composed by Vaishnavas or quasi Vaishnavas who believe it their study to widely broadcast the downsides and failings, real, imagined, or exaggerated, of ISKCON and its leaders. Arguably, a good antidote to such propaganda is for concerned insiders to promptly rebut postings that are untrue, conceived, and malicious, and to openly, realistically, and constructively analyze the actual downsides and failings of ISKCON. Traditionally, respectable people kept internal problems to themselves, but the advent of the internet has made that almost impossible. The reality is that via the internet, mistaken ideas will continue to be widely propagated about Vaishnavas and Vaishnavism, which require to be countered. Otherwise, wrong notions will gain currency and unnecessarily spread distrust and disharmony among Vaishnavas. Chapter 31: Truth Will Prevail. Outspokenness and struggle are unlikely to make Krishna consciousness immediately popular, but in the long run, such preaching will prove effective. Because when people become disappointed by the cheaters whom the devotees constantly berate, they will ultimately come to recognize the veracity of the devotee's message. By agitation, our position will be improved. Prahlad Maharaj was suppressed in so many means. In so many means, what was the loss on his part? He improved more and more, more and more. If Christ were not crucified, then his would not have spread so much all over the world. Because he was persecuted, his cult became so spread. If we sincerely tried to present our philosophy at every opportunity, eventually it will be heard and appreciated. Our unique asset is our purity. No one anywhere can match it. That will be noticed eventually and appreciated. As long as we do not diminish or neglect the highest standard of purity in performing our routine work, our pure standard is enough. Let us stand on that basis. People are appreciating the purity of our teachings. Gradually, they will appreciate such teachings more and more. Simply if we stick to our principles. This Krishna consciousness is authorized, practical, and simple, and those who have enough intelligence will recognize this fact and will join with us. Our program is to simply chant Hare Krishna, follow the regulative principles, and preach this philosophy without any adulteration. If we stick to this policy, then by our good example, people will see the potency of this great movement. Our movement is the greatest gift to the human race. They may not immediately appreciate us. They may not immediately appreciate it, but time will come and history will give evidence that this movement saved the human society from being fallen into barbarianism. The fact is that our movement is unique, professes the highest truth, and is based on the highest principles. We are on very firm ground. Our so-called religion is unique in the world simply because we stand solidly on philosophy and because we are strong in that way. No one can refute or defeat us. So we are wiping out sentimental religion wherever we penetrate. And it gives the people everywhere, and it appears the people everywhere are accepting us more and more. There is no need to hide ourselves in our philosophy. Clear, insistent, and persistent promoting of Krishna consciousness will surely create all auspiciousness. We stand on our Krishna philosophy because it has the full potency of Krishna himself. There is no limit to the effect it will have upon the world if we remain sincere and convinced for spreading this philosophy purely. If we simply repeat this philosophy exactly as it is, without any misrepresentation or adulteration, then this movement will never be checked and we will conquer the world. Such words of our Acharya should not be taken lightly. Preachers who are on the cutting edge can experience how Krishna responds to devotees who persevered in all circumstances without ever dreaming of compromising. Krishna makes the impossible possible. Doors open, magic happens, mercy reigns, demons join the kirtan, the world changes.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Uh, do you want to continue?
No, Prabhu, you can continue.
Yeah, perfect. Anybody else wants to read? If you want, please put a chat. Thank you so much, Asit Prabhu.
Thank you, thank you. Welcome, Prabhu.
Hare
Hare.
Krishna. Anybody else? Otherwise, I'll pick it up. I'll pick it up. Yeah. But if any of you feel motivated, please put it in a chat and we'll give it to you. Chapter 32: Preach strongly or perish. Srila Prabhupada told us to fight and defeat the atheists, impersonalists, and other demons. Yet in today's ISKCON, the only fighting seems to be internecine. What we call preaching is more about sharing pious pleasantries at interfaith conferences than challenging the cheating of so called religionists, scientists, welfare workers, educationists at all. Srila Prabhupada's example was to untiringly explain the substantial philosophy of the absolute truth as delineated in Shastra. In so doing, he necessarily rallied against all flawed and nonsensical perspective held by non-devotees. As Ananda Devi Dasi recalled about the Srimad Bhagavatam class in 1975 in Delhi, Srila Prabhupada was talking about hogs, dogs, camels, and asses. Her parents were present, and her father's response was, "What kind of lecture was that? He was just talking about hogs, dogs, camels, and asses," Ananda Devi Dasi commented. Srila Prabhupada gave us just what we needed to hear, but we are not always willing to accept. But it was very interesting. He was talking about Grahamedi life and hogs, dogs, camels, and asses. No Radhe, or intimate pastimes, anything like that. When you look back now, it's so much clearer how his preaching was medicinal on the level that he needed to hear, that we needed to hear these things, and we still need to hear these things. He is giving the right medicine, the right dose, at the right time, not like a quack who will give you something that you like to take, but it doesn't actually do the job. Srila Prabhupada's direct, lucid, and powerful delineation of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness convinced thousands of non devotees to dedicate their lives to Krishna, and furthermore, help devotees to remain fixed on their goal and ever striving for new heights in devotional service. If Srila Prabhupada had not spoken as strongly as he did, Krishna consciousness would not have so swiftly and powerfully flourished all over the world. And none of us would be here today to even discuss these matters. Only by continuing to teach the spiritual science that Srila Prabhupada represented and taught in the same undisguised and undiluted manner as he taught it, can non devotees continue to be brought to Krishna consciousness, and can current practitioners remain unsevering in their determination to assiduously practice and propagate devotional service. As Krishna is all attractive, his instructions in Bhagavad Gita and his literary manifestation as Srimad Bhagavatam are also all attractive. Failure to present a devotee the full message of these essential works in the manner that Srila Prabhupada presented it is to fail to give Krishna as he intended himself to be given via Srila Prabhupada. To consider some portions unpalatable means to deny those aspects of Krishna's attractiveness and demonstrates a misunderstanding of Krishna and Krishna consciousness. Therefore, candid speaking is particularly required in temple classes and in all preaching directed specifically towards devotees. Although peoples may be brought to Krishna consciousness by sweet words and enjoyable programs, and nourished by the soul's natural attraction to Harinam, if they are not subjected to the full, unedited, anartha shattering messages of Shastra, they will never properly imbibe the seriousness of Krishna consciousness or be able to differentiate it from the many prevalent forms of pseudo spiritual sense gratification. They will never gain the strength to remain steadfast in the face of the inevitable test. To combat misconceptions among both devotees and non devotees does not directly foster bhakti, but it necessary to protect bhakti. For as long as erroneous notions remains, bhakti can never be properly understood or practiced. Prema pracharana, preaching about divine love without pashandalana, quelling of deviations, will allow facilitate fallacies to fester within devotional society, perennially weakening it and diverting it from the goal, and to sometime erupt as full-fledged heresies. Footnote: Prema Pracharana Pashandadalana from Chaitanya Charitamrita 3.3.149. For the full verse, see page 2. End of footnote. Particularly in the modern world, materialistic propaganda is so ubiquitous and pernicious that devotees cannot but be affected by it unless they continuously distinguish reality from illusion by mutual discussion of the absolute truth as described in the Shastras. Indeed, unless various misconceptions are regularly raised and refuted and thus purged, devotees are likely to harbor deep, subtle attachments to such delusions. To not unmitigatedly oppose various aberrations means to accord them tacit approval. For silence indicates consent. Maunam sammati lakshanam. If there is some argument and you remain quiet, that means indirectly you accept. Thus, an atmosphere is nurtured wherein no one can be clear as to what Srila Prabhupada taught and wanted, nor can anyone properly advance in Krishna consciousness. Mild speaking and glowing over issues, Mild speaking and glossing over issues often means philosophical laziness, as unwilling to try to deeply understand philosophical truths. Such dullness dooms any possibility of spiritual advancement. Siddhanta alasa jana anartha to chadena. A person who is slack in accurately comprehending Siddhanta does not give up anarthas. Therefore, Siddhanta baliye chitte nakara alasya iya hoite Krishna lage sudrida manasa. A sincere student should not neglect the discussion of such conclusions, considering them controversial, for such discussions strengthen the mind. Thus, one's mind becomes attached to Sri Krishna. To not continually repeat the full and unadulterated message within Srila Prabhupada's book is itself a minimization of that message. Consequently, those books will come to be seen as ana, ana, anachronistic and irrelevant. Anachronistic and irrelevant. And thus, the devotee community, no longer guided by Srila Prabhupada's teaching, will be divested of his mercy and defined by teachings other than his. If anything but the undiluted truth is regularly discussed, half truths or lies will come to be accepted as the actual truth. Due to the deeply rooted perversions of conditioned souls, unless aspiring transcendentalists frequently hear exposes and condemnations of all that is opposed to Krishna consciousness, they are unlikely to grasp even basic concepts. Retaining attachment to various misconceptions and concomitant anarthas, they will remain stuck in the very thought patterns they are supposed to rise above. For instance, without regularly hearing that material existence is excruti- excruciatingly nasty, devotees are likely to maintain the depraved tendency to mistake this hostile world as an arena for their own enjoyment. Hence, they will have little impetus to surrender to Krishna, nor even know that they are meant to surrender or what surrender entails. Similarly, if the prominent inquiries of modern society, impersonalism, atheism, mundane welfare, work, cheating religiosity, cheating philanthropy, quasi scientific bamboozling, and so on are not regularly discussed, devotees might consider that perhaps those anarthas are not so bad after all. Resultingly, the whole society of devotees will be open to poisonous contaminations. Particularly, the resolve to preach to save the misguided populace will erode, and the very purpose of Srila Prabhupada's mission will be lost. Without preaching, our institution becomes all rubbish. Maya is so tricky that unless we are firm in our position against the Mudas, there is every danger that we ourselves will again become Mudas. If you compromise, then gradually you will also go down. Unless our preaching is solid, our conviction will diminish. Not to fight against bogus ideas means to compromise with them. At first, maybe only subtly, but from the subtle comes the gross. For instance, devotees who become inordinately influenced by social niceties start to doubt the principle of absolute correctness and thus consider Prabhupada's style condemnation to be excessive. They complain about the severe style of presentation, but the real objection is to the content. Such persons cannot be considered genuine followers of Mahaprabhu. Rather, they are akin to the Upper Sampradaya who oppose Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. They are becoming reasonable according to the mundane standards. They are preferring to be accepted and respected by fools and rascals rather than to faithfully maintain the Vaishnava position is the acknowledgement of capitalization to Maya. The acknowledgement of captilu- cap, captive, captive, capitulation to Maya. Oh Krishna, some of the
Capi-
words.
Capitulation.
Capitulation.
Yes,
Yeah,
Prabhu.
thank you so much. Some of the words Guru Maharaj
Yeah.
and Srila Prabhupada used is amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
is the acknowledgement of capitulation to Maya. Srila Prabhupada warned that without strong preaching, our movement would become ruined. We have to become very strong preachers. Then this movement will stay. If you simply take the temple worship, it will not stay very long. Don't compromise. This principle must be observed. Then you will remain strong. As soon as you compromise, then it is finished. We have to fight against all this nonsense. Nonsense scientist, nonsense religionist. It is not an easygoing sleeping business. We have to fight with so many demons. Otherwise, Khawa dawa dukhana, my Guru Maharaj used to say, bake some rice and bring it and cook it and eat and sleep. Khawa dawa dukhana. Yeah. By no means should the Hare Krishna movement come to be seen as merely sentimental. Just demonstrate sincerely that we have good solid ground beneath us, not that we have only some sentiment. This is our substance, real philosophical information, not some weak sentiments. It is a path of least resistance to buckle to popular demand, but by doing so, the purpose of Krishna and the Acharyas will be minimized. Srila Prabhupada cautioned that anything without substance will not last. Many fanatic spiritual movements have come and gone. Without the flawless philosophy of Krishna, they cannot stand. As representatives of Srila Prabhupada, we must ask ourselves if we are bold enough, if we dare to follow Srila Prabhupada's example of boldness, or are we willing to ditch it under subterfuges, subterfuges such as time, place, and circumstance, or being mature? It is ludicrous to think that we can convey Srila Prabhupada's message to the world by presenting anything else. There was never been a better time for preaching Krishna consciousness than now. Devotees should speak in one voice to deliver mankind from the tortures of directionless materialism, insidious impersonalism, dogmatic theism, disgruntled atheism, and blinkered scientism. There is no need for indirect approaches such as bridge preaching or interfaith. Such tactics might be all right at sideshows, but should never have become the mainstream. Undoubtedly, it is a challenge to preach among people whose conceptions are far removed from those of pure devotional service and who are not interested to change. But that does not justify catering to their misconceptions and passing off such cheating as preaching. It is very difficult to understand our philosophy, but still we have to preach. That is our mission. Better to attract sincere people by giving the clear, consistent understanding that Srila Prabhupada gave us. Anything less than direct delineation of the purely spiritual message mean to descend to the bodily, mental, and intellectual platforms, whereon concoctions abound and confusion prevails. Our whole institution then becomes a Kanishtha Adhikari affair, with devotees diverting to peripheral concerns such as money, relationships, and health, rather than the crucial considerations of fully surrendering to Guru and Krishna in the fire of the Sankirtan movement. Hence, before we can save the world, we must first save ourselves and Srila Prabhupada's movement. As Srila Prabhupada warned, if preaching is compromise, everything else becomes compromise. The path of bhakti is extreme and demanding. Mam ekam sharanam vraja. Surrender unto me utterly, and can be transferred only by the fully dedicated. It is true that strong preaching risks alienating others, and that an ethos of strong speaking, unless carefully monitored, is likely to attract and foster some fanatics. Yet, habitually mild preaching much more dangerously risks losing the sense of urgency and commitment to save others, and of altogether compromising the preaching spirit by reshaping our mission into an insipid, ignoble bid for social acceptance. In other words, we ourselves become superficial if we are overly concerned about catering to superficial people, whereas those who preach strongly are obliged to follow strongly. Those who advocate a relaxed, accommodating approach to Krishna consciousness ipso facto lack dynamism and focus. By accommodating Maya, they make gradual adjustment to their practices and thus risk eventually becoming totally mundane. Widespread lack of faith in the absolute correctness of Krishna consciousness, evidenced by our awareness to presenting Krishna consciousness as it is, that is, as Srila Prabhupada presented it, is undoubtedly a major factor in the decline of standards within ISKCON since Srila Prabhupada's departure. When Srila Prabhupada was here with us, he kept us in line. Nowadays, among many putative devotees, anything goes. Watching movies, eating unofferable food, wearing t shirts with non devotional themes. Somehow, everything has become unquestionably acceptable. Today, many so called devotees do not like to clearly differentiate between devotees and non devotees and disapprove the use of words like karmi or demon, which Srila Prabhupada regularly used. And those who rightly identify nonsense masquerading as Krishna consciousness are conveniently labeled old school, fundamentalist, or worse still, offensive. The protestations of such faithful devotees are neglected by persons who are very serious about not taking Krishna consciousness seriously. That's just his opinion. That's all right for him because he is a sannyasi. I am not, so I don't have to follow so strictly. However, at least senior devotees cannot shun their duty to point out discrepancies that inevitably arise even within a Vaishnava institution. Still, frankness in dealing with devotees should be tempered by the special honor due Vaishnavas. It is appropriate to first praise the qualities of especially a respectable person before calling attention to his apparent faults. Srila Prabhupada once quoted a Sanskrit verse related to criticizing, the gist of which is that one should say, the beautiful tree with luxuriant foliage, delicious fruits, and aromatic flowers has lost its juice, rather than merely saying, the tree is dry. Although both statements convey the same meaning, the appreciative tone of the former is far less likely to offend than the blunt four words of the latter. This is appropriate etiquette and is in accord with the vital principle of avoiding offenses to devotees. However, such etiquette is wrongly invoked if speaking about various deviations is from the outset assumed to be Vaishnava aparad and is thus rejected out of hand. Some devotees argue that members of ISKCON have no right to highlight others' faults because too many among us have failed to maintain proper devotional standards. However, the solution is not to placidly tolerate that which should not be, but to make ISKCON what it should be. If ISKCON is not the worldwide pace setter in genuine spirituality, capable of and dedicated to completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, if we flop into accepting internal depravity as being unavoidable, then ISKCON will not be the society that Srila Prabhupada is the founder Acharya of, but a sham, just another middling religious institution posting as spiritual for cheating the public. According to the principles of unity and diversity that Srila Prabhupada often stressed, the Krishna consciousness movement can and should accommodate a variety of approaches towards the practice and propagation of devotional service. Yet, in many cases, the difference is not simply of approach, but a fundamental divergence in understanding what Krishna consciousness entails and of the very purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement. For instance, members of the Krishna conscious movement who consider strong preaching to be too dangerous are themselves dangerous. Since knowingly or unknowingly, they subvert the mission of the acharyas. Yet an even greater threat are those who deliberately downplay the fact that Srila Prabhupada spoke strongly and who thus ob- obliquely try to redefine him as the kind of harmless sadhu they think he should have been. At least the leaders of the ISKCON should uphold the philosophical behavior and preaching standards given by Srila Prabhupada and the previous acharyas. A major factor in Srila Prabhupada's ability to instill in others faith in Krishna consciousness was his insistent and consistent delineation of the truth and distinguishing it from untruth. Therefore, the leaders of ISKCON should accept the parampara duty of speaking in the same spirit to thereby create the others' initial faith in Bhakti Yoga and to help their followers become fixed in understanding Vaishnava Siddhanta and in striving to fully surrender to Krishna. If instead of insist, if instead of insistently and consistently delineating the truth and distinguishing it from untruth, leaders of ISKCON try to attract others by personality cultism, a polished show of saintliness, sentimentality, worldly altruism, or other superficial means, then they are hardly transparent representatives of the parampara. And if such heterodoxy becomes predominant, then all is lost. Footnote: arguably, heterodoxy is already prominent within ISKCON. Can the situation be retrieved? Hopefully. Speaking strongly will engender thoughtful discussion of this vital topic, the scope of which, however, is beyond this volume. A call for reform is the underlying purpose of this book, the publication of which suggests a hope that transformation is possible. Yet, presumably, effecting required changes will be a trying and prolonged task. End footnote. 33. Summary. Just putting a charge, Prabhu. Yeah. Regardless of how they attempt to do, glorious indeed are all devotees who resolutely strive to transform the contrary inclination of conditioned souls. Yet there will always be a divergence, for some devotees revel in an acute frankness that may sometimes disturb certain people, while others are committedly non-confrontational. Both approaches are admissible, but which should be the prevalent one in ISKCON? Ultimately, it all boils down to the question: did Srila Prabhupada want his followers to speak strongly, or did he advocate a non confrontational style? This book has attempted to demonstrate that Srila Prabhupada desired that his preachers speak strongly, subject to certain caveats. The general principles of strong speaking are: preachers' statements, written or oral, should be solidly based on Shastra and the teachings of the Parampara. This includes being loyal to the spirit and style of Shastra and the Parampara, which entails being bold, clear, provocative, frank, realistic, uncompromising, all grounded in conviction in the veracity of Shastra and the teachings of the previous Acharyas. Preaching should be conducted in the spirit of creating a spiritual revolution. Generally, opposition from mainstream society should be seen as indicative that we are on the right course. Subject to the caveats below, the truth, even when unpalatable, should be stated fully for the benefit of the recipient, having regard to his personality and disposition. Caveats to strong speaking are: it should be undertaken in the spirit of selfless service to Krishna and in a judicious manner, preferably by well trained, experienced devotees preachers who have firm sadhana and thorough shastric knowledge. It is not called for in all cases. The mature preacher must determine how best and in which manner to present the message of the acharyas under varying circumstances and to disparate individuals. A consummate preacher is aware of and skilled in employing tact and discretion as he in speaking strongly. His aim is to always serve the truth, for which purpose he may sometimes employ tact and sometimes be deliberately confrontational. It should not be employed out of malice, but out of compassion for the conditioned jivas. It should be presented scientifically and cogently to establish sound persuasive conclusions. It should not consist of mere name callings, threats, or similar misbehavior. Generally, miscreants should not be openly exposed by name. By this may be done if it is estimated that the overall reaction will help to spread the message of Krishna consciousness rather than alienate the public. Prudence and diplomacy are especially called for when dealing with government officials, employers, business partners, and other important persons. Strong speaking significantly differs from soft speaking, which is characterized by a fear of disturbing others and resulting reluctance to straightforwardly speak the seemingly harsh truths stated in Shastra. This attitude is typically wedded to a low key preaching style aimed more at creating a good impression of Krishna consciousness. Just please wait. I hit the soft approach favors cultural performances, prasad distribution, and other agreeable presentations, all of which are essential to the preaching strategy of the Krishna consciousness movement, but which should complement and not become substitute for direct delineation of its core messages. Proponents of the soft approach should not oppose on principle the clear utterance of Shastric truths. That was Srila Prabhupada's trademark. Nor should softness decline into or foster vagueness, platitudes, or errant compromise. Clearly, straightforward speaking of the style that Srila Prabhupada inculcated is largely considered axiomatically unacceptable in ISKCON today, and the movement has ipso facto significantly departed from Srila Prabhupada's practice and precept. This new paradigm of caution rather than boldness might help to increase ISKCON's numeral strength and level of public approval, but it is symptomatic of spiritual decline and can only augur further inauspiciousness. Only if Srila Prabhupada followers again embrace his uncompromising mood and cooperate to preach as it is and manifest Krishna consciousness as it is, can ISKCON fulfill Srila Prabhupada's mandate to be revolutionize the world. With this conviction and sense of mission, devotees who have implicit faith in the message of Shastras as presented by Srila Prabhupada and all bona fide acharyas, who live by that message, not just paying it lip service, who regularly, thoroughly, and prayerfully study Srila Prabhupada's book, who are sufficiently experienced and expert to present the knowledge thereof in a confident, coherent manner, and to answer all objections and overcome all oppositions, and who have the pluck to do so, should continue to preach strongly. And indeed, they will become, they know they must. That devotees speak strongly should be the norm, not an oddity. Strong speaking is necessary for defeating challengers, counteracting common misconceptions, answering doubts, goading the complacent and the apathetic, and keeping keen the proper understanding of the already committed devotees. On the contrary, mere cooing at the materialist, being overly anxious to leave a good impression, is likely to leave very less impression. After all, there are millions of polite, boring people in the world who have nothing of any real value to say. Not all devotees will understand or accept this. Possibly in every generation, there will be a majority who, in the name of preaching, attempt to denature the parampara message, and a minority who maintain the parampara principle by rigidly adhering to the acharyas. Many cringe upon hearing the truth expressed explicitly, even though that is the idiom of Shastra, and do not like that devotees straightforwardly present the truth to others. They strongly preach against strong preaching and think that the worst possible thing a devotee can do is to upset someone. They become disturbed at the apparent arrogance of preachers who deride the position of non devotees. Not being convinced of Krishna's teachings, they propose various reasons for covering them up or understanding them. For instance, by perversely misapplying Srila Prabhupada's statement to propose that no one should speak as strongly as Srila Prabhupada did because no one is as qualified as he. Some of those who protest against strong preaching seem to be opposed to the very enterprise of preaching, for they themselves hardly do anything that resembles actual preaching, and often seem more concerned to obstruct actual preaching than to promote it. However, just as proponents of being nice to all may feel disturbed by clear cut, incisive preaching, forceful preachers are disturbed by wishy washy claptrap. The widespread misconception among both non devotees and neophyte devotees that a saintly person should not speak strongly is one of the many misconceptions that the Krishna consciousness movement must address. Unless the spirit of powerful speaking is kept prominently alive, ISKCON will become a bog of sentimentalism, lacking proper discrimination and philosophical understanding, and thus indistinguishable from the morass of pseudo spiritual organizations. It will be incapable of fulfilling the mission of Srila Prabhupada and the previous acharyas to give to the world the knowledge it needs. Better that ISKCON be felt as a threat to materialistic civilization than as nice but insignificant, like the Salvation Army or an old woman's crochet club. Beware, devotees. lest we sell our souls and by altering the tenor and the character of his movement betray Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada preached with a hatchet and warned against mental speculation. He demonstrated how to be direct and strong, firm in Shastra and philosophy, uncompromising, unabashed, and unflinching, yet also sensitive and considerate. Many could not accept Srila Prabhupada's message, but those who did became fixed in Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada did not operate on the platform of mundane emotion. He aimed to convince people, elevate them to the transcendental platform, and give them an experience of the happiness of genuine spiritual life. We must model ourselves after Srila Prabhupada, not by imitation, but by faithful following. Srila Prabhupada saved us from illusion, doubt, and confusion by relentlessly speaking the vital transformational truth of Krishna consciousness. To think that we can better spread Krishna consciousness by presenting anything different is arrogant, foolish, offensive, and a disservice to Srila Prabhupada and to the world. Much better than becoming overly cautious is to incessantly propagate the undiluted teachings of Shastra, which simultaneously endeavoring to become ever more expert and realized. To do so requires a mature commitment to studying, absorbing, and intelligently preaching the philosophy that Srila Prabhupada so elaborately presented in his books. Let us not neglect the challenge to present Krishna consciousness vigorously and frankly, as Srila Prabhupada did, while always praying to him for guidance so that our preaching may be authoritative, poignant, and effective in dispelling illusion. 34. Afterthought. Afterward. 34. Afterward. I am very neophyte in spiritual life. My vision of Krishna consciousness is very limited. I do not know anything beyond what I have learned from my spiritual master, nor do I know how to behave as a Vaishnava. Therefore, I have simply studied the character and activities of my spiritual master and have, within my limited capacity, tried to follow him. Others may emphasize different traits in his multifaceted personality, but I cannot ignore the immovable, uncompromising preacher who is Srila Prabhupada. As a disciple of Srila Prabhupada and a sannyasi, I am mandated to speak strongly, as he did. But some deem that I am not advanced enough to speak straightforwardly. If that is so, then why should it be supposed that I am capable of speaking so expertly that people's heart melt and they automatically abandon their envy of Krishna? Factually, I am not fit for preaching work of any capacity, nor even for chanting Hare Krishna or wearing tilak. But my spiritual master has ordered me, so I cannot give up these. So I cannot give these up. I cannot imagine changing my style of presenting Krishna consciousness. It is beyond my power of self control to just keep quiet while anti devotional twaddle is expounded. Not that I always speak sharply, but apparently often enough to have earned a reputation for it. As I continue to preach strongly throughout this life, and maybe also in many future lives, I offer apologies to those whom I have or will upset, and further apologize that I cannot compromise with all of your nonsense. But I feel more sorry for your remaining unattached to Krishna than for my having disturbed your mundane sentiments. Hence, I might continue to upset you again and again until you finally stop upsetting Krishna and surrender to his lotus feet. You may accuse me of being arrogant or immature, that I do not know how to deal with people, am not a real sadhu, or so many things. While admitting my multifarious faults, I must counter that mostly people are not agitated by my forthright style. Indeed, many thank me for having enlightened them. Even if my words make them feel uncomfortable, they appreciate that I do not speak from hostility and respect that my commitment to an ideal is more important than to mollify others for maintaining artificial bonhomie. So, to those few people who do become annoyed at me, I request you to look into your own heart to see if perhaps there is a plethora of false ego there. I can only conclude that those who still consider myself and others of my ilk to be unreasonable and fanatical, notwithstanding the extensive quotes and arguments offered herein, are themselves unreasonable and fanatical. I am a tiny soul, a small fish in great ocean, yet I aspire to follow in the footsteps of the previous acharyas in whatever negligible way I can. Although I am certainly cannot claim to be anywhere near the level of the all of the mighty acharyas, I might at least try to serve their mission by repeating their message forcefully and with conviction, even if it opposes the current of public opinion. Appendix. Shall we continue, Prabhus, or because there is very, very less uh, chapters? Because tomorrow, then, if we read, it will be done in 15 minutes. Yeah, others is glossary. Maybe we'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow only we can do.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. And I should. Yeah.